Today's guest is Daniel Burge. Daniel was mentored by Nuala Ising and graduated the 4-year diploma program of the Burren School of Homeopathy in Galway, Ireland, and completed further postgrad training across Europe to the USA, India, and the Himalayas, studying with Nancy Herrick, Roger Morrison, David Lilly, Rajan Sankaran, Jan Shelton, Jayesh Shah, Peter Chappell, Jeremy Sher, Elise Timmerman, and many others. Daniel also participated in Professor Franz Rupert's first ever advanced training in multigenerational psychotraumatology, which has now evolved into identity-oriented psychotrauma theory and therapy at the Norwegian Institute for Trauma Studies in Oslo. Daniel is also a professional family and systemic constellations facilitator and holds a diploma in constellations and trauma from CADU in Mexico, and he trained in shadow constellations with Nir Esterman. Daniel has practiced the 5 Rhythms dance practice since 2003, and he has extensive experience in wilderness and navigation, and in his younger days he was sponsored by the North Face for his Himalayan adventures, and he's also traversed the Himalayas solo. Since this year, 2023, Daniel has been teaching alongside Emily Waymeyer, bringing forth an entirely new movement of work called the VAST methodology, or Visual Somatic Therapies. The next training starts on 11 November, so you still have a few days left to register. If you'd like to find out more, you can email Daniel at info@danielburge.ie or visit www.danielburge.ie. That's DANIELBURGE.ie. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to the Homeopathy Hangout, where we discuss all things homeopathy from around the world. And now my mum and your host, Eugenie Kruger.
Hello, homies, and a very warm welcome to Homeopathy Hangouts. Today, we get to hang out with the lovely Daniel Burge. Welcome to the show, Daniel.
Thank you.
You've got such a big smile. I'm like, trying to check if there's something stuck in my teeth.
I'm just so used to leading groups and trainings and working, and to actually turn up and not have dozens and dozens of people like listening to me and me having to deliver is a real joy. And I'm also not used to working mornings on Zoom. I tend to work in the evenings because of time zones. So, yeah, it's lovely to see your face. That's why I'm smiling. But also just I really feel I can sit back into this and just enjoy the ride today, which will be great. So,
well, the joke's on you because you're going to have thousands of people listening to this interview. And I'm the one doing that. You're doing the work because I'm asking the questions.
Yeah, sure.
So you might have been sold a lie. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, this is good for me. This is great. So thanks for having me.
Well, we got to know each other through Danitza Appeline's Golden Spiral Proving Group, and you really blew my mind because I'm trying to think of what the remedy was that we proved. We've done a few now, so I can't remember which one it was, but you were sitting there and the things that you were experiencing in this proving, I'm like, holy hell, this guy is tapped into some or other source out there that I clearly have no access to. And I was like, okay, I have to get you on the show to come and have a chat. But before we get cracking, can you tell us how you were first introduced to homeopathy?
So I was in my teens and I used to get hay fever, and I saw a homeopath where I was living in England, in Essex. And I'll be honest, I didn't have much success. She gave me a lot of remedies and I took them and nothing really changed. And that's how I felt about homeopathy. I was really committed to it working. I was really invested that this has to work. I'd read a bit about it, but really I went because I had some acute symptoms during the summer. So that was my introduction to homeopathy. But where I really got homeopathy, that's the important bit for me. I'd been living in Canada, in Edmonton, in Alberta, and I came back to England. I hadn't lived there for a few years. It wasn't a physical issue I had. It was existential. I was going through some real existential stuff. And I thought, right, I'd better get onto homeopathy and find out if this can help me. So I found the phone number for Misha Norland and I rang him and I said, hi, Misha, you don't know me, but I'd like to come and see you. And he said to me, well, it's quite a long journey from where you are in London to come down to Devon. I said, well, I'll do that. I'm happy to do that. He said, well, what about London? He said, can you afford London prices? I said, well, I'm in a bit of a state. I said, I don't think I can afford not to afford London prices. He said, well, in that case, David Mundy, go and book a session with David Mundy. So I contacted David Mundy. I got an appointment. I think he was at about 3 times the price of anyone else who was practicing, from what I could see. It was 2001. It was £140 for a session. And at the time, you could get a session for like 40 quid from people. So I turned up at David's clinic in the middle of London, and I must have spent an hour grilling the poor guy to see if he was up to the task. I literally was testing him and asking him questions. I was going to pay him, but part of my consultation was, is this person, does he have the capacity and the caliber to hold me and to treat me? And it became quite obvious that he did. And he took my case, and the case all told took 3 hours. I was with him for 3 hours in the room. And towards the end, I told him a lot of things about myself, obviously. I'd shared a really important dream. As soon as I shared the dream, he said, I know exactly what you need. And he told me the name of the remedy. And in that moment, that absolute instant, everything changed. Everything. The world completely shifted. My perception changed. I remember a shimmer, this transcendent shimmer just came across everything. And I just sat there in complete, I'd call it gnosis, in like just a deep, direct knowing, realization, whatever you want to call it. We've got names for these states, but they can only ever point to them. And I looked at him and said, so this is the remedy then, isn't it? And he went, yeah, this is it. I said, so are you going to give me a pill or something? He said, well, I don't need to. He said, because obviously it's happened. He said, but I'll give you something anyway. And I loved it, actually. He went to his cabinet and he didn't get out a pill. He got out some powder and he tipped about a gram of a white powder into a paper wrap and dripped something on it and gave it to me. And I took it that night and the next morning. So that's how I really got into homeopathy. And I remember leaving his clinic. It was so clear that when I left his clinic, I walked down the street and I was literally just in paradise. It was heaven on earth. I'd really just returned to the garden. And even though I was in the middle of a concrete jungle, I was literally walking, but I was back in the garden. And I remember thinking, if I can do for one person what's just happened to me in my life, then I will have lived a good life. And that's what I came away with. It wasn't 2 people. It wasn't the whole world. It wasn't, I want to change everything. It was like, if I could do this for one person. And from then on, I came home. I processed stuff. I remember the World Cup was on that year. I wasn't interested in football. I went around a friend's house, watched the England World Cup game, which was great. Beckham was there and all my mates were there cheering. But I knew I was Irish, even though I was raised in England. And I'd never really fully connected with that. And then the Irish game came on. There was a game straight after, and there were a load of Irishmen, and they were just charging after the ball. They were just these wild warriors, a completely different energy to the English. They were like ballet dancers and really quite contained and elegant, but the Irish were just wild warrior men just charging. And yeah, I was like, I need to get to Ireland. And it all added up. It's like, I need to get to Ireland, connect with my ancestry, and I need to study homeopathy. So I found someone called Nuala Ising, who was running the Borough School of Homeopathy, and I rang her up. She took the call. I said I wanted to study with her. She said that she wasn't available for the next few weeks and the college would be starting in September. She was off to Belarus because she used to treat people with radiation sickness with homeopathy. And she said, but let me think about it. We're full. We've got no space, but call me when I get back. And I rang her back about a month later and she said, yeah, I've been thinking about you. You've got a place. So I moved to Ireland and I started studying with Nuala. And that was my real initiation into homeopathy. Incredibly experiential training. I think within week 1, we were doing the proving.
Wow.
That we were proving immediately. And we proved a lot of remedies over time. Some of them were easier rides than others. Some of them were incredibly hard going, but we learned a lot. We really did. And I'd say what we did was we learned to think, at least some of us, we learned to think for ourselves. That's what she said she wanted. I want you to think for yourselves and decide, what do I think about something? So yeah, amazing woman. So none of my training was from English homeopaths, which a lot of people expect it would be because of my accent, but I have been trained by some since then, but yeah, it was Irish homeopathy. That's where I started off.
David Mundy is a pretty spectacular person. So Misha's son, Luke, actually suggested that I have David on the show. And so I had the privilege of interviewing him a few episodes ago. Holy moly. It was that was really next level stuff. I wish I could have spent more time just listening to him.
Well, I mean, feel free to bring anything about that to this podcast, because I know David and we really meet on a level. I'd say people talk about maybe Advaita Vedanta or non-duality. That's where we can meet each other without any effort at all. And that's basically what happened in that consultation room. We both recognized what this is beyond the conceptual overlay of the world. Like that just dissolves, and it can dissolve. For me, that's healing. This idea of the world, this construct we have, this constant crisis, it's not real, even though it feels very real. We've only got to put the news on and it feels really real. And yesterday I was quite consumed by it. I was looking on the news, and it can pull you in. It can pull everyone in. It's magnetic. It pulls us in and it can pull us under. It's like a perpetual cosmic riptide. And when you're on the beach and that current pulls us and it fills us with content. But it's possible when there's a real cure that is immediately just seen through. Even the sense of who we are, like this separate sense of self, can also be seen through. That's where me and David could talk for hours, I think.
I bet. I would love to be a fly on the wall.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
What do you think got you to this point where, before we started recording, you were talking about this level of healing where a remedy is not even necessarily needed? But what I'm always interested in, maybe that's the homeopath in me, is the journey to how somebody got to where they are, like that level of thinking. Like, what was your journey to get to the point where, you're like, let's talk about how you don't even need a remedy, like how you can actually instantaneously heal.
So my journey, what I can really see back to is the moment of my incarnation as a separate sense of self. And that happened to me when I was still in my mother's womb. She'd not given birth to me, and I was incarnated. There was suddenly a me. I was aware of me, and it wasn't ideal circumstances. It was a boundary rupture, I call it. The mother disconnects from the child. I mean, that can happen more often in infancy, in the early years, but for me it happened whilst I was still in the womb. And I was immediately faced with the threat of annihilation, because I was an infant, completely dependent, and there was no one anywhere. So that's where it comes from with me, a connection to before incarnation, before separation, a real connection with unicity, with just like boundless love. So my incarnation came absolutely just one moment after I was in that ocean of love, that cosmic love. And because I survived that, and yet I know where I came from, it's always been really clear to me that there is such a thing, even though it's not a thing, it's thingless, and it's available to us at any time. But rather than try and get back to that through spiritual bypassing, which is incredibly common for people to do. I don't know if you know that term, but we try and go from where we are, try and get back to essence, get back to oneness. And we can do that through drugs. We can do that from all sorts of things. What I've learned is there's actually a journey, a process of being human, of reclaiming the nervous system, moving through the psyche, individuating out of oppression, becoming a sovereign human being, becoming autonomous, individuated, and in relationship to everything that's arising, and then move into essence again, and then back to the cosmos. That's the direction.
It's so fascinating. I mean, like I said, the journey of where somebody gets to where they are is the thing that fascinates me.
Yeah. There's remedies on the way. There's really clear remedies for me that have been significant. I mean, Thuya was the one that David Mundy gave me. Amber, Succinum, that Mueller did the proving of. that was critical in my journey. I'm fascinated by how we can sum remedies up, but amber is just such a beautiful remedy for people who've been separate from where they're from. I mean, you once described it as, and I probably embellish it as well, that, amber comes out of a tree and it's an organic gemstone. It comes out of a tree, it fossilizes, it's a sap of a tree. But for me, it's very low density. And because it's low density means it's not completely embodied and incarnated, but its low density means it ends up in the ocean and can float in the ocean. And so it starts this journey of leaving the tree, and it floats across the ocean and ends up being washed up on the shores of a distant land to which it feels like it does not belong. And that's why it's can be such a perfectly indicated remedy for adoption and people who've lost their mothers and people who've been separated from source. So that was a key remedy, as are the matridonal remedies, which are really something I'm in love with. Yeah. Absolutely in love with them.
I can't get any excuse to prescribe them.
Yeah, Lac Humanum is.
Do you use Lac Humanum though? Because I don't know, I've always felt I always use Lac Maternum. I just never use Lac Humanum. I just like that. I'm drawn to the fact that Lac Maternum is made from the milk of 9 different mothers, and it's got the colostrum all the way through to 10 months. So, I do think us homeopaths have our favorites. So, like, my favorite is Lac Maternum.
I think Lac Maternum in a C4 potency, high titration, that would be different. And the potency selection is critical.
Yeah,
absolutely critical.
I need to go check which trituration I have, because now that I've become a bit more aware of that, I need to actually go back and see which triturations they are and get them in C4.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine Lac Maternum just from a pharmacy now. It would be C4 or higher. Lac Humanum, Lac Maternum. I mean, I've got them here. Paul Therio did a really high titration of Lac Maternum. I think that's incredibly valuable. And Lac Humanum, that Ali's has been speaking about Ali's Timmerman for years now. I mean, it's really essential. I think everyone on the planet could benefit from that. And of course, in lower potencies, not just high, because in the lower potencies, it does contain oxytocin. So that makes it very different. It's a really important thing. This idea we have to go high. We really don't have to go high. Sometimes we do, but just being really embodied in the lower potencies, because they do contain significantly different qualities to the higher realms. Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about trauma, and what is it about trauma that fascinates you? And you do lots of workshops around this as well. Are they all in person, or do you do them online?
My last in-person workshop was last January in Ireland. I have been doing them. Well, that's one I organised. Yeah, every summer. I just did 3 workshops in Ireland at a camp called Earth Song this summer. I get invited to a holistic camp with, I think, about 500 people. It's all off-grid for 9 days. They run 2 of them in the summer. So nobody touches a phone, a laptop. There's no electricity on site. It's absolutely wonderful. We camp in tents around fires. We cook on the fires. And they asked me to come and do workshops. So I lead workshops for people. Thankfully, they give me the biggest workshop tent, because it does get full. We have about 45 people come to them. And I lead people used in the work I do in a group setting. It's very similar. Well, it would be informed by family constellations work, which I've trained in. So that would be ancestral work, family constellations. But my work is based on the center gate or module of the training that I lead with Emily Waymeyer, a constellator and medium and therapist from Ashland in Oregon. So yeah, that was the last time I did some workshops. We did 3. I love doing them. I love being in person. I do all my work on Zoom, but oh my God, I love being in person. And especially on a field with everyone in bare feet. They're completely earthed. So when they're earthed, so when they walk in, they're ready. They're really ready to just go in. And what it enables me to do is learn the simplicity, the minimum dose of working with people in a workshop setting or just in life, because if anyone's had any experience of family constellations, there's so much opportunity, and quite often we can be seduced into introducing more and more things into a setting, into a session, when really what we're doing is we're looking for what's essential as therapists. It's absolutely critical that I even say that. We're looking for what is essential, and we're looking to locate the client. We can't heal a client unless we can locate where they are. It's absolutely critical. So at homeopaths, are we not locating where they are in the cosmos? Are we not locating where they are fixed, or where there's stuckness in the animal realm or the mineral or the plant kingdom or the imponderables, which incidentally Nuala taught me that is not the right word. She says she can ponder anything, and I took that on. So there's imponderables are completely ponderable, just in case people wonder. So yeah, we're looking for where we're located, and it's possible that we're not just located in one of those realms. We can also be located maybe in a past life. And how do we do that as therapists? How do we actually work and locate where people are? I know real estate people say location, 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 but this should be what we do with our clients. Like, where are they? Not just who are they? We can pinpoint this stuff. And if we can't, we shouldn't beat ourselves up about it. We really shouldn't, because we're all going to work in our own wonderful, unique way.
Yeah, all of us have something to offer, hey?
Oh my God, yeah, don't we? Everyone. I mean, everyone's just a reflection of who we are. I mean, it's, we really are. We do meet what we are. Mm. That's exactly what we meet. This world is what we are. And if we change, the world changes in an instant.
Yeah, actually, that's what David talked about in his podcast episode. It was titled The Mirror and the Magnet. So it was...
Okay, the mirror and the magnet.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I've covered... I said the world is... Yeah, the trauma field is magnetic. The mirror and the magnet. Okay, got it. Yeah.
I need to ask you something, though, because you wrote down, for when I asked you about, topics for today, you wrote down the morphogenetic field, the polarities of the trauma field, and the generative field. And I don't even know what that means. Can you talk to us about that?
Sure. So in 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic, I connected with Emily Waymeyer, who I just mentioned. I saw that she was doing some new work in her field, and it totally mapped over work I'd been doing for many years. But what had happened is she downloaded, she's a medium. We joke about it. We just downloaded it. It's not just downloading, She got a map of the morphogenetic field, or a structure of the field. Rupert Sheldrake is a scientist from the UK who talks about this. It's an information field, and we can go into resonance with it. Family constellators use it. They talk about the knowing field. That's how they term it. A man called a psychiatrist, Albrecht Marr, coined the term the knowing field. But what happened with me and Emily, who I now work with, is we got this map, and it shows the layout of the field. So rather than working blind, we've actually got a clear structure of what the field looks like. And we've been testing that now for, it must be, it's going on life, isn't it? 2020. So that's like 3.5 years now of constant testing this and never seeing it not being true, for whether it's in large groups in a workshop or whether it's working one-on-one with people. So I've literally worked with hundreds and hundreds of people now in the past 3.5 years. And what we see is that the field, and we call it the trauma to essence map. That's what it's called, trauma to essence. We see that there's two parts of the field. Now, they're not like they've got this absolute division, but there's two realms. And one is we call the trauma field, and one we call the generative field. So there's many ways of describing what that is, but the trauma field, that's where the wound is contained, our original wounding. It's also where our strategies are contained. The strategies might have come through in this life, but mostly inherited strategies from our ancestors to compensate for the wound that happens to us. So they're in the trauma field. And that field is full of content. It's full of information. It never stops providing information and content to us. It's always, I'm almost say spewing. It will just literally just provide more information. But it's not like the generative field. The generative field is the polarity of the trauma field. And that's where things really, really change. And the generative field is where we are as sovereign human beings, where we're fully individuated and we're not isolated. We're individuated and we're in full relationship with all that is arising at any moment. Also in the generative field is our essence, our core essence. So that's where we are realized as multidimensional, celestial, angelic beings. That's another aspect of the generative field. So there's the trauma field, which is core wound, core strategy, and there's the generative field, which is core self and core essence. And the journey is to move from wound into and through strategies, befriending them along the way, recognizing what they are, acknowledging them, never excluding anything, and then step out of the trauma field, which is very different from most ideas of therapy. Most ideas of therapy is you stay in the trauma field and you try and find your way out of the trauma field by using the content that comes through that gives you the impression you're working your way out, but you're not. You're just working your way into staying in the trauma field. And due to the magnetics, which is interesting that David said magnet, due to the magnetics of the trauma field, it takes one heck of a therapist to not get pulled into the client's trauma field. And the reason that usually happens is because the therapist is in their own trauma field and they've never been shown the way out. So you end up in your own trauma field with a therapist who's in the trauma field with you, both doing what you believe is work, but what you're actually doing is just experiencing the constant, perpetual content that comes through that field and you can't get out. It's a bit like drinking coffee. If you drink really strong coffee, it can agitate you. And people think that's waking them up in the morning, but it doesn't really wake you up. It agitates you because there's activity. You get the impression that you're awake, but you're not. It's not like drinking a fresh juice and going for a walk and breathing fresh air. That's the generative. That's like moving into life. So what we do now is help people step out of the trauma field and into their core self. It's a huge task, but if you're in your core self, it's so easy to help someone do that because you can see where someone is. I was talking about location. When you're in your core self, you can just locate where someone is. You can just see where they are. And when you're in the trauma field, you try to locate people and you can't do it because you're in the trauma as well, which is why if I say you have to locate, be able to locate, if that's confusing, that's the content of the trauma field causing the confusion and the distortions. So if we're in core self, we can see where someone is and we can say, I know exactly where you are, which is in itself is a relief to someone. Now, if I'm actually working with someone therapeutically, I can say, I know exactly where you are and it's really okay you're there. It's great that you're there. I know exactly where you need to be and precisely what needs to happen for you to get here. And it's not get there, it's get here. But once you're in the generative, you literally can help people leave the trauma field. It's not like getting away from the trauma field. It's not like getting away from your wounds or denying or excluding or disowning a part of yourself which is not serving you. It's not about cutting ties that bind. It's not about any of this. It's about moving into sovereignty. And when you're in sovereignty and in the generative field, the capacity you have is boundless. There's no limit to your human capacity. So you're an individuated human being, but you're also in full relationship with all of the cosmos, and you realize you're that as well. And you can just bring people over, but you have to do it together. What we're realizing is we can't do this on our own. We can't and stay in it, because there's a huge pull to bring us back in. For me and Emily's work, is personal trauma is the result of social oppression. And I know there's this P word that some people try and avoid, but it's patriarchal oppression. And yeah, I'm a white man and I'm saying that. It's patriarchal oppression.
I saw you share that on Facebook a couple of days ago, like what we need is matrifocal leadership. I'm like, I had to go Google that.
Yeah.
I never actually heard that term before.
Right. It's matrifocal leadership is what we're doing. We look at what happened before the patriarchy. There were times before the patriarchy a few thousand years ago. And from what I'm seeing now and what I'm told, they were golden times. Things were very different then. It was not the survival of the fittest. It was not only the strong survive. It appears that that's how history has been written, to make us feel that life is always a struggle and always will be. But from what I can tell, it wasn't like that. So you could say that was matriarchal, but I don't know because I wasn't there. But it's possible there were still hierarchies. But matrifocal is mother-oriented society, life, and without hierarchy. And everyone becomes a leader. Everyone is a leader. And we don't know what this really looks like because it's new, but we're building a community. I don't mean like a physical community, but we don't train people. Yeah, we don't train people to become brilliant and then go off and find their way in the world. We're training people to be brilliant and become leaders and become free, and then be able to free other people and have access to a community of other people who do this for the rest of their life. It's like our most foundational work is accessible to everyone who's an adult. It's to do with reclaiming the nervous system. It bypasses the need to have therapy sessions and pay for them, because everyone who trains becomes a somatic reclamation practitioner, and they can do the work and receive the work. So we've got a community of everyone who's ever trained with us, everyone who's training now or ever will, has got access to all those people, and they've got groups where they can just say, I need a session. Sometimes they have weekly sessions with each other, and all they have to do is swap their time with each other, and they discharge a distress, reclaim their nervous system, whether that's chronic, which is like, could be this lifetime, previous lifetimes, anything, or someone's stolen your car parking space and you've completely freaked out, or maybe your electricity got cut off, or there's been an accident with one of your kids. And what we realize is there's so much distress in the system. When people know they've got access to one-on-one therapy, basically, it's no longer once a week. It's no longer once a month. It's extraordinary just how much people need at the beginning until they really reclaim who they are, because this gives them their voice back. Wounding takes your voice away. I can't say that I think of leading questions too much in a consultation, but I have learned that if I'm sitting usually in front of a woman, if I want to help a woman discharge distress, I might ask her, at what point in your life did you have your voice taken away from you? And there's usually a reflex there. There's usually something, because sadly, I find that as men, we haven't had that happen as much, but women's voices get suppressed out of them. But yeah, we bring that back. We give voice to the wound. It's really beautiful. And lifelong community of practitioners. As long as you live, you've got access to all these people. I do it every week. It's the most brilliant way to work. But really super important. And that's part of the trauma field. That helps us become free of that. And also, if you're suffering, you go back into your wounds, you go back into your strategies, and it's wonderful. But what happens, you don't get lost to them. You're completely in contact with who you are, and then you can go and have a relationship with your wound without disappearing into it. And that's where we wouldn't have art without wound. Like, we need that. And it becomes people report back kind of collectively, it's like a really fertile, like humus in the ground, like the soil. That's the experience of the realm of the wound. It is the earth. It's really quite wonderful.
That's where our empathy comes from as well. Hey, like if we never had any wounds, we just never, I don't think we'd have any empathy. Like I think so much it comes from the fact that,
say more about that.
Yeah, you.
No, you.
Can I say more about that? Oh my gosh, I've had so many things happen in my life that, I'm so grateful for that, because it's helped me to empathize with people and it's given me so many life skills. I mean, that's how I often, I tease my kids about this. I say to them, you guys have just had your life. Like it's been too easy. Like I'm actually worried about them that they haven't experienced like what I would say any trauma, by their age. I say to them, I had been molested. My parents had been divorced. I had all these things happen to me. But then at the same time, it's actually also so beautiful that they, go to this incredible school. They have two parents that love each other so much. They live on this beautiful acreage with all the pets in the world. And they've just got such a great life. No home, like schoolwork or anything like that. So I'm like, I sometimes I say it, but I don't say it. I'm sometimes, I mean, they're going to get their wounds at some stage, but like the wounds are what grows you, right? Like it's what pushes your boundaries, and that's how we grow. But maybe that's a limiting belief that I have, that you need to go through pain.
No, it's not. It's just being an adult. We go through loss and it brings gravitas. It's not a trendy thing, gravitas. I mean, we're always trying to immunize ourselves against aging. We're in the cult of youth. But yeah, with aging and loss comes gravitas. We literally have gravity in our soul. And whenever I've been like really, really in the depths, I always thankfully have heard myself saying, please don't ever let me forget what this is like. So when I meet someone who's here, I'll see it immediately and I can be there with them, no matter what it is. And I mean, this summer I was doing a workshop and the time ended and people didn't want it to end. So we went outside and we all sat together and there was a young woman next to me and she just started talking and she hadn't said anything during the workshop. And she said, I lost a baby. And she was only a kid. I mean, she's in her 20s and early 20s. She said, I lost my child. And I just looked at her and said, I lost one too. I lost my child. And she said, really? I said, yeah, we lost a baby. And that was it. That was the medicine. And she never came back. She never came and saw me. But we looked at each other and she knew that I knew, even though our experiences would have been different. And if I'd never lost a baby, I would never have been able to say I lost a baby as well. And she would never have got that humanity, that connection we got. So, yeah, it's part of the course, isn't it? Being an adult, we can have immense losses and it can take a long time to process them. It's not what we necessarily want to happen to us, but they do form us. And when we move out of the trauma field, which contains the narcissistic type of person, and move into the generative, where the unprejudiced observer in homeopathy, or the objective witness is, all those aspects and experiences we have, they just come through. I mean, they really do. I mean, I talk as a father. It's like I have gravitas, I know how to protect. I know how to provide security. And it's a different security to the security and protection that like my partner might provide. But yeah, I mean, all these losses we have, I mean, we literally can turn them into gold. We literally can. Yeah, I lost my mother. She withdrew from me when I was in the womb, like I said, and she kept me for 8 weeks. But then I was taken and given up for adoption to another couple. And yeah, wonderful people, but the damage was done. It's really important. Adoption is this bizarre word that happens after the fact. But I've really come through that, and not just come through it. It's almost astonishing. I've got 4 ancestral lines. I've embodied 4 ancestral lines in me. And yeah, we do get wounded, but oh my God, we can become completely free, absolutely liberated. And yeah, I'm doubtless about that. Whatever happens to us are the perfect circumstances to become completely free in this lifetime. I don't see that not true for anyone. There's got to be a willingness, though. You do need that willingness to move. Movement is what's key. Movement is health, and being stuck is sickness. But yeah, we all go through them. Our kids are going to get it. That's the thing as well. You know, as parents, we know they're going to have their own wounds, their own traumas. And we just need to be there when they have them. That's all we need to be able to do. Yeah.
So this is my own, my own interest that I just want to check. So this somatic reclamation, do you do this as an online course? And then is what you're saying that people can then, after they've done this course, go and join this network that you've created, and then they can go and have free sessions with each other. I think you mentioned in our little WhatsApp proving group that you have all sorts of therapists. So it's not just homeopaths, it's all sorts of therapists and people from all sorts of walks of life that can do this somatic reclamation training. I just want to make sure I understand it correctly for my pure selfish interest, because I would love to do the course myself. So I'm just trying to find out, how do we go about this?
Okay. I'll tell you what it is. We run, Emily and me lead a training together. She created the bulk of the course content. She's just extraordinary what she creates. She asked me to join her last November. Would I co-lead? And I said yes. We've also got 2 other teachers for the practice groups, because a lot of it is live. And we've now got 4 student teachers from our current training who are going to come in and support the one that opens up soon. But somatic reclamation is the first foundational gate of a 2-year training in VAST, which is visual somatic therapies. And the way I've created it this time is that SR, somatic reclamation, is a standalone, I think it's about 14 weeks, a training that you can do, and you do learn how to work with other people and also on your own. You can do it on your own once you've learned how to do it. You can do it with a flower. You can do it with a tree. It's a way of discharging distress from your nervous system and reclaiming it. And what does that feel like? It feels like peace. It feels like peace. It feels like the crisis is over. You know, for me, the war was over during that, learning how to do SR. 14 weeks long. Anyone can apply to do it. We do need to read about you. But yes, psychologists, massage therapists, body workers, homeopaths, osteopaths, a head gardener in Ireland is doing it. I mean, the list goes on. Anyone can do it, and it's for life. I think it's the most fundamental thing we should learn as human beings, but it also is a foundation to carry on and do the rest of the vast training. And that is a clearly mapped pathway to freedom, from wound, through parts, through psyche, sovereignty, the individuation out of patriarchal oppression. I'll name it as that. We individuate out of patriarchal oppression. And that's why we stick together, because the patriarchy is geared up to not keep us free. It's geared up to pull us back in. But in a community, we stay out, and we learn naturally how to do that. And then moving into transcendent realms, the celestial, angelic. And then if you want to do non-duality and Advaita Vedanta, the Black Madonna, the Void, that's in gate 5. Wow. But one thing I will say about gate 4 is we work with medium illness, and sounds a bit odd as a term to a lot of people, but anyone listening to this podcast is going to be empathic. We're all empaths, and we're all aware of, we're just naturally in a way of being that isn't about the physical world. You know, we know what resonance is. We're in it all the time, but it also can be a lot to handle. So we really work with that with people so they don't get sick, because we can get sick when we're open, when we're really open. So we make sure people, you know, deal with that and don't get sick. So we have a whole part of one gate on it. But to go back to what you said, SR is a standalone course. You can do that. You get access to the community for life. All you have to do is exchange your time with other facilitators. You can go on and do VAST afterwards. I'd highly recommend it. I know we've really connected with something hugely relevant to the times that we're in. It's not an accident this work all came through at the beginning of the pandemic. And we're already, me and Emily, we're already designing it as a legacy, like beyond our lifetimes. It's not about us. It's about how to bring this to people and how to make it sustainable And thankfully, we've got the most wonderful people who are doing our training from all around the world. I mean, I turn on Zoom, Australia, the Philippines, the Middle East, USA, Europe. I mean, it's a really international group of people, and that says a lot. It says a huge amount to me that people want to do this work with us, and it's lovely to lead it. I can go into the nuts and bolts of doing it if you want.
Yeah,
I don't know if this is the time.
Yeah, we
now.
can finish up with that. Yeah, tell us about the nuts and bolts, and then also tell us where we can book.
November the 6th, it would go out, yeah? So what has just happened is the Vast Essentials, which is a free mini immersion into the entire Vast methodology. We ran that from the 21st to the 28th of October. We do have recordings of it that are available. So you can contact me and I can get you in an email sequence to actually view those because they are recorded. But the training starts on November the 11th. So it's 2 years. We go through the visual and somatic therapies methodology, which is vast, with 5 gates, plenty of time for practice and integration. And the first gate, again, November the 11th, 14 weeks, standalone, reclaiming your nervous system. That's the foundation for, as we see it, all therapies and for life. You can use it with clients. You can use it personally with your family, your friends, and your community. The first gate, the usual price of that is $2,500, but I can give you a code. We can do something that you can get that for anyone who's listened to this I'll do that for 50% off if you would like to join us. So it'll be $1,250.
Wow.
And if you're really stuck on that, we can offer you a payment plan just to help people through the gate and in. So you haven't got much time, but we'll have to work this out. But yeah, 50% concession I can offer on that. So it's under $100 a week. And on completion of it, you'll receive a somatic reclamation seal of completion from us. And from there, you're eligible to join us for the entire vast methodology, or you can stop right there. But if you carry on, we'll train you in somatic mapping, trauma to essence constellations. There's a full family and systemic constellations training in our work. Between me and Emily, we've got over 40 years experience as constellation facilitators. And then on to essence, revelation and absorption. So it's a mapped out journey to freedom. That's my spiel.
That sounds absolutely amazing. And it's so great. So, I mean, today will be the 6th of November when this is going out. And it'll be, did you say the 11th of November?
The 11th of November.
11, I like that.
Yeah, I don't know how easy it is to convey ways of contacting me, but if you want, maybe just give my website.
Show notes, but also give us just danielburge.com. So DANIELBUR.
Danielburge.com. There's actually a tab under appointments where you can book a call with me. So if you need to book a free call, book in. I'll call you. If I've got some slots available, I'll call you wherever you are in the world. Okay. So I'll do that, but that's depending on what's left. And the website is www.vastmethodology.com.
I see here on your danielburge.com website, you've got a vast training free discovery call.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Between the two, between danielburge.com and vastmethodology.com, everything comes to me.
Oh, amazing. I've just hopped on the Vast Methodology website. That's great. Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's getting built right now. We're kind of moving in processing that, but you will be able to get me. And the Vast Essentials, which ran from the 21st to 28th, I'm working on having that as an on-demand thing you can do. So you could get connected with that really quickly. But contact me. I do reply to emails. I do have a support team. So we will get back to you. You can reach out if you just say, I want to do it, or I think I want to do it, but I need some more info. But we'll get you in. We can get you through the gate. And I guess the best way of leaving is that building a secure frame is what we do in this work. It's giving people a visceral sense of safety. The safety that we did have or should have had when we were with our mothers, in our mother's arms, being looked upon her with her loving eyes. And that's where we get back to with this work. It's really incremental, permanent changes we look for, just like Hahnemann, rapid, gentle, and effective. And we look for rapid, We look for gentle, and effective means permanent change that doesn't go in reverse. And we just look for like 1 or 2% each session. You haven't got to transform everything in one go, because for your nervous system to hear that, it can breathe and relax, because it doesn't want to hear that an interaction with a therapist or a workshop is going to put the nervous system under pressure to completely have a paradigm shift. You know, we used to think that, but we're over that now as human beings. And when we're in community, we can have the connections ongoing to keep those small changes happen, which to me is towards fully embodied enlightenment. There's no point in saying it any other way. For me, it's other than that, what's the point? Why are we here? You know, it's to be fully realized human beings on this planet, you know, back in the garden, walking in paradise together. And as far as me and Emily see it, we've got a way in which that can happen.
I'm sure there's not going to be one single person listening to this that is not completely resonating with what you have just said, because I think all of us are longing to return to that. And I love that idea of the incremental changing. It makes so much more sense. Rapid permanence.
Doesn't it?
You got that little step to build on, and then the next little step, and then the next little step.
Just one after another,
One baby step after the next. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, most of my clients are therapists. I mean, they're from homeopath therapists. I've got non-duality teachers see me. They're clients of mine. I know what they teach, but I also know they've got their stuff. Whatever they're telling you, they've got their stuff. And we work with the stuff. Even if someone's enlightened, they've still got a nervous system. It still gets loaded up. So, we just work on small changes that are permanent. No pressure. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing this, Daniel. I really appreciate it. I really hope you come and join us at our conference in Bali in September 2024. I see you've got one in Himalayas in 2025, but
I've put that out there. Yeah, it's quite a leap. It brings together everything. The medicine that I sell, and I told you about the Ayurvedic medicine, Shilajit, my experience as a Himalayan adventurer, that comes through. But yeah, that really is that's a big possibility, working on a retreat on the borders of Tibet and Nepal in an incredibly remote region. But just put that one in as well.
Okay, let's not get started because that's going to be a whole other episode.
Great. And you've got to drive home. Brilliant.
Thank you so much, Daniel. It was really lovely to chat with you, and I look forward to hopefully doing lots more provings with you.
Oh, it'd be lovely. I look forward to it, Eugenie. That would be really great. Thanks for having me on.
All the best. Bye.